This is a Skoda ENYAQ. In this video, I want to find out its range in everyday driving conditions. I'm going to test the range in the city, on the highway and on regional roads to find the minimum and maximum driving range. I also wanted to know how long it takes to charge the battery at a fast charger. For that, we're heading to a DATS24 fast charging hub. DATS24 is also the sponsor of this video. The Skoda ENYAQ is an electric car equipped with a lithium-ion battery. Our test car was the ENYAQ 85. That's the version with a usable battery capacity of 77 kilowatt hours. The specific trim of this test car was the corporate version. You can buy this starting from a rather steep 62,504 euros. The combined WLTP range is 581 kilometers. It has 285 horsepower, which takes it from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 6.7 seconds. Also important to mention is that this car comes standard with a heat pump, which helps efficiency. On top of that, the test car features 21-inch wheels, which isn't quite as good for the range. Now, let's go for a test drive to find out the real-world range. At the start of the test, the battery was 100% charged and the range indicator showed 549 kilometers. We start the test at the outskirts of Brussels and drive via a national road towards central Brussels. The first part was city traffic, but moving reasonably well. As we approach Brussels, it gets busier and we end up in a typical city scenario, stop and go driving at relatively low speeds with the occasional traffic jam. I drove almost this entire trip in the efficient B mode. I did the test in April. It was a mild day, around 12 degrees. After driving 24 kilometers, we have our first numbers. The battery dropped from 100% to 94% and the consumption clocks in at 15.6 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. If we calculate this based on the battery capacity, we get an estimated city range of 494 kilometers. That's a great result. If you hit even more traffic jams, that consumption will probably end up higher. Time to leave the city. We hit the highway towards Namur, heading for the roads in the Ardennes. We're doing 120 kilometers per hour where possible, a bit slower at times due to roadworks, but overall it's a smooth drive. I drove 101 kilometers in total. It was 16 degrees that day. I ended up with a consumption of 17.8 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, which gives an estimated range of 433 kilometers. Later that day, I also drove back from the Ardennes towards Brussels. That time, the consumption was 17.4 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, meaning an estimated range of 443 kilometers. It was slightly warmer then, about 19.5 degrees. All in all, that's a relatively low consumption for the highway, giving it a more than acceptable highway range. By now, we're near Marche-en-Famenne and we're leaving the motorway. We're on country roads now and I want to see what the car can do. I drove a bit more sportily for a few kilometers, accelerating more often and then settled back into a relaxed pace. After 15 kilometers on these roads at 16.5 degrees, the average consumption is 20.5 kilowatt hours. That's higher than on the highway. That brings the sporty range to 376 kilometers. I now have an idea of the consumption in more challenging conditions, but I also want to see the other side. What's the maximum range? I'll do that test later, but first let's do a charging test at a fast charger. For this test, I'm visiting one of the 60 charging hubs of DATS24, the sponsor of this video. I found a charging hub on my route in Jean-Blou via the DATS24 app. Typical for DATS24 charging hub is that they are all located in retail parking lots, usually a Colruyt, so you can go shopping while charging. You don't have to get bored in the car. The parking spaces at DATS24 are also wider. The charging stations are located in the middle between two parking spaces and have very long charging cables. This ensures maximum comfort for shopping customers. Tip: you can park nose in, so you can easily unload your shopping cart into the trunk. A charging hub consists of 6 fast charging points with a speed of 150 kilowatts, also 4 standard AC charging points up to 22 kilowatts. At some charging hubs, like the one in Halle, you can even fast charge up to 400 kilowatts. Another big advantage is that you can charge with a bank card. However, you get the most favorable price with a DATS24 subscription. Before you start the charging session, you always know the price. For fast charging, it's on the display. For AC chargers, you can scan a QR code. DATS24 has its own network of 4,200 charging points. With a DATS24 charging card, you can charge at almost every charging station in Belgium. Right, so what about charging? This ENYAQ 85 can handle DC fast charging up to 135 kilowatts. Skoda says this EV goes from 10% to 80% in 28 minutes. We're testing this in temperatures around 18.5 degrees. At the start of the test, the battery is at 20% and the range indicator shows 105 kilometers. We start charging and after just a few moments, we're charging at 120 kilowatts. After 10 minutes, I check again. We are then charging at a speed of 131 kilowatts. Looking at the screen, it also shows that at one point it must have peaked at 134 kilowatts. In 10 minutes, the battery went from 20% to 45%. We gained 129 kilometers of range. After 20 minutes, the charging speed has dropped to 109 kilowatts. Still pretty high though. The battery went from 45% to 70%. We gained another 128 kilometers of range. After 30 minutes, we stopped the test. I noticed the charging speed had dropped to just 40.6 kilowatts by then. The battery is at 85% and the indicator shows 440 kilometers of range. So in 30 minutes we gained 335 kilometers and went from 20% to 85% at 18.5 degrees. What about AC charging? I didn't do an AC test, but I can tell you that you can charge via AC at 11 kilowatts and the charging time from 0% to 100% is around 8 hours. Now I want to find out the maximum range. For this I'm heading to typical regional roads, low traffic, no traffic lights and just driving smoothly at a constant speed of around 70 kilometers per hour. These are pretty much the ideal conditions. After a 50-kilometer drive in these conditions and at a temperature of 20 degrees, I see a consumption of just 9.5 kilowatt hours. Wow, that is a completely different number compared to the earlier tests. Granted, it's a short test of only 50 kilometers, but if you can maintain this consumption, you're talking about a range of 811 kilometers. That's a massive difference compared to the motorway range or sporty driving. Above all, it shows how huge the impact of your driving style and the conditions really is. If you want to review the results of this test at your own pace, head over to my website. You'll find not just this test, but also range tests for dozens of other cars and nearly 400 test drive videos. How does it drive? On paper, 286 horsepower is a pretty decent amount of power for a family car. That creates certain expectations for dynamic driving, but the driving experience is a tiny bit disappointing. It's all quick enough, but not really exciting. On the other hand, when it comes to steering, it's a very pleasant car to drive. The ENYAQ has a very short turning circle. This makes it a very nimble car, for instance, when maneuvering out of parking spaces. The test car came with dynamic chassis control, and in its most comfortable setting, you barely feel any bumps in the road. It's a spacious and practical family car. There's plenty of legroom and headroom, and my seating position in the back is comfortable too. For example, I'm not sitting with my knees up to my chin. There's a lot of storage space. The boot has a capacity of 585 liters or even 1710 liters with the seats down. There is no frunk though, and the charging cable bag doesn't fit under the boot floor panel. In conclusion, I can say that the minimum range during my test was somewhere between 376 kilometers with sporty driving and 433 kilometers on the motorway in temperatures around 16 degrees. On regional roads and with an efficient driving style, I saw a potential maximum range of 811 kilometers at a temperature of 20 degrees. In the city, I got around 494 kilometers of range. even in rather heavy city traffic. Looking at the whole trip, I drove about 374 kilometers and the battery went from 100% to 20%. The average consumption clocked in at 15.9 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, leading to an estimated range in a mixed scenario of around 484 kilometers. I suspect you'll get a bit less range in colder temperatures and obviously a bit more in summer. During the fast charging test, the ENYAQ doesn't have an impressively high charging capacity, but on the other hand, it stays fairly stable. For instance, we started at 120 kilowatts and after 20 minutes we were still at around 109 kilowatts, which still delivers a good charging result. In 30 minutes we gained 335 kilometers and went from 20% to 85% at 18.5 degrees. You can find the full specifications of the test car and the report on my website. I'll put the link below this video. See you in the next video.